In the 7th year of building a startup with Ethan, the company finally went public. The very next day, he couldn't wait to make it official with a curvy underclassman. Over drinks with his buddies, he joked that when you're poor, you can't be picky about a wife. That being with me, Maya had just been settling. Now that he had money, of course, he'd choose a woman he actually liked. Riding the high from drinking, he even brought that underclassman back to the villa we shared, wanting to lay it all out with me. He had imagined me going hysterical, smashing things and raging. But he hadn't expected to see me, cheeks warm with shyness, nestled in my childhood friend Jack's arms. "You're the moon I've carried in my heart for years," I told Jack. "Now that the company's listed and I've got money, I'm obviously kicking that worn-out man Ethan to the curb and choosing to be with you." The alcohol-flushed color on Ethan's face vanished in an instant, leaving him chalk white. He clutched the underclassman's hand and then let go all at once, pointing at me with a trembling finger. "Maya, who is he? Why are you two holding each other?" My face was buried in Jack's chest, and I didn't want to pull away. The interruption annoyed me. "Ethan," I said, my voice cool. "The company is listed now. I have money too. When you're broke, you don't get to choose a husband. Back then I stayed with you because I had no choice. Now I'm obviously going to spend my life with someone I actually like." I was bolder than Ethan. He only dared to speak his mind after a few drinks at the table. Me? I dare to say what I think any time. Ethan's face went from white to a sickly shade. A heavy breath trapped in his chest, making it heave. "The company just went public yesterday," he said. "And you couldn't wait to bring a man home? Do you even remember I'm your boyfriend?" Before coming back to the villa, he had pictured breaking up with me, tossing me tens of thousands as compensation for my wasted youth, and bracing for me to cling to him all night. On the way over, he had even racked his brain and come up with a dozen ways to shake off this clingy plaster. He just didn't expect me to take his route first and leave him no way out. Outside, rain poured in sheets, drumming and crackling and jangling the nerves. The underclassman stepped forward and sweetly wrapped her arm around his. "Ethan, I'm sure Maya just couldn't think straight for a moment," she chirped. "She probably found someone on purpose to make you jealous. Please don't be mad at her, okay?" That finally reminded Ethan why he'd come home tonight, and his expression eased at once. He sat on the sofa, crossed his arms, and looked at me with open contempt. "Maya, someone can only make you jealous if love exists. We've been together 7 years, and I'm sick to death of your face. No matter what you do with another man, I won't be jealous. I founded Chang'an to give Anna a future. Now that the company is listed, let's part on good terms. 7 years ago, Ethan and I founded a company called Chang'an. When we chose the name, I asked what then meant. Ethan smiled, slipped an arm around my shoulders, and said it meant we'd carry on safely and steadily. I never imagined that character was actually the name of the moon in his heart. Anna was Ethan's underclassman. He had secretly liked her all through college, but with his ordinary family background, he couldn't confess to his white moonlight. Not until the company started to take off did he work up the courage to confess. Anna dumped her boyfriend on the spot and blushingly nodded yes. Staring at my slightly pale face, Ethan smiled, pleased with himself. "It's a little underhanded, sure, but just like you guessed, then in Chang'an is Anna's name. Founding this company was the biggest gift I could give her." Anna's eyes shone with near tears as she nestled against Ethan's shoulder. "Ethan, your love is so moving," she murmured, and from the corner of her eye, she shot me a provocative look. Ethan thought I'd go hysterical and curse him out, but I acted like I hadn't heard a thing. I only turned to Jack beside me, tears in my eyes and a faint tremor in my voice. Clutching Jack's hand, I asked, "Do you like the name Chen? Jack is my childhood sweetheart, and the white moonlight I've loved in secret for years. Who doesn't have a white moonlight? If you gave me enough time, I could probably fill this 3-story mansion with all the ones I've ever secretly liked. Back then I was poor and insecure, too embarrassed to chase someone as tall and handsome as Jack. I only dared to watch him from the shadows like a rat hiding in a gutter. But fortunes turn. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west. Now I've got money in my pocket and confidence to match. A handsome man and a capable woman standing side by side. What a perfect pair. So I added his name to the company's name as a gift to him just to win a smile. What's wrong with that? Ethan stared at me in disbelief. Jack's name rolled around in his head 2 or 3 times before he snapped to it. He slapped the table and pointed at me, shouting, "Maya, when we founded the company, I asked you why you had to add the Chong character. Do you remember what you told me?" I dug a finger in my ear, impatient. "Didn't I say it already? Chong as in boundless prospects for our bright future. Stop being so paranoid all the time." "Okay." Ethan let out a laugh that was more teeth than humor, squeezing sound through his clenched jaw. After a moment it was like a weight fell from his shoulders. "I was going to break up with you. And for the 7 years you spent with me, I wasn't going to shortchange you. I'd have given you a lump sum, but now it looks like I don't have to pay a penny. This mansion is a rental, and I'm the one on the lease. Maya, take your man and get out." Anna's gaze roamed greedily over the lavish decor, and she couldn't help chiming in. "Sister Maya, if it weren't for Mr. Ethan, how could you possibly be living in such a beautiful place? Now that he doesn't want you anymore, hurry up and pack. If your luggage gets tossed out later, that'll be embarrassing." I frowned. Why should I be the one to leave? "Why don't you go?" Ethan's face relaxed as if victory were in sight, and he drawled, "The lease is for 3 years, and I've paid every cent of the rent myself. Obviously, you're the one who needs to go. A woman who's out of favor should grab her suitcase and beat it." I lifted the bright red property deed in my hand, my name printed boldly across it, and cut him off. "Thanks for paying rent on time for 3 years, but the owner of this place is me." Ethan and I had had a relatively smooth run building the business. 3 years ago we made a big chunk of money. Ethan wanted to strike while we weren't married yet and buy a house under his own name, something that would be his personal property. I told him housing prices were unstable. Why not rent a mansion first? When the company goes public, you can buy properties all over the country and take your time picking the best. He took my advice, compared options carefully, and chose this mansion. And then I quietly bought it and collected his rent for 3 years at a 200% increase. Ethan snatched the deed, rubbed his eyes, and ran over my name again and again. His roar filled the wide living room. "No wonder the rent went up so much. You kept pleading that we shouldn't move because you were attached to the place. So all this time the rent was going straight into your pocket." I nodded, satisfied. 3 years of rent at twice the market rate. You gritted your teeth and paid it. I'm very pleased with that. I stood and waved him off. "I had Mrs. Miller pack your things and set them by the door. Make sure you take them when you leave. As the landlord, I'm not renting to you anymore. I don't want Jack getting the wrong idea." At that, Jack slipped an arm around me and guided me toward the stairs. He didn't forget to toss a line over his shoulder at Ethan, whose face had gone the color of iron. "Hey, ex-boyfriend, don't forget to take the trash out when you go." Bang! The front door slammed with a thunderous crack. That night, Ethan called me dozens of times. I declined every one. Long, rambling paragraphs poured into my WeChat. I blocked and deleted him. The night was long, and I intended to enjoy the company of a handsome man. I had no time to bother with that washed-up ex. Besides, we never even got a marriage license. Whom I choose to be with is my freedom. Early the next morning, I drove to Chang'an with Jack in tow. The employees' nosy eyes followed us, whispering about me and the man at my side. I ignored them and went straight to the top-floor conference room. All the shareholders and investors were already there. Ethan had been caught in the rain last night. He sat at the head of the table, sneezing, and the moment he saw me come in, he put on an arrogant face. He gave a cold snort, then spoke like he was granting alms. "Maya, Anna has suffered a lot in the past. I've always wanted to repay her. Starting today, she's officially joining the company in the HR department. The seat that used to be mine was currently occupied by Anna in a white dress." Anna stood up, pretending to be uneasy. "Sister Maya, Mr. Ethan only took pity on me. That's why he arranged HR for me. But I looked over your day-to-day work and found you're completely unfit to serve as CEO of Chang'an. So you're fired. Of course, the company will pay you what you're owed, enough for you to live on until you're old." She covered her mouth and smiled. Ethan tipped his chin. "Maya, pack up and go. There's no place for you at Chang'an anymore." Around us, every shareholder and investor dropped their gaze. Not one of them spoke. I walked up to Anna without a flicker of expression, fisted a hand in her hair, and dragged her aside. Over her screams, I said evenly to Ethan, "We founded this company together. You think you can just fire me because you say so?" He seemed prepared for the question and answered with smug confidence. "When we founded Chang'an, I held 35% and you only 20%. Why wouldn't I have the authority to dismiss you?" Anna quickly scrambled to stand behind him. "Sister Maya, Mr. R. Ethan's word decides things here. Be good and leave on your own. Otherwise, when security throws you out, you'll really lose face." I sat down in my original chair, unhurried, took out the equity transfer papers and smiled brightly. "Sorry, some shareholders transferred their stakes to me. I now also hold 35%. The double blow made Ethan's face curdle. He snatched the documents, read them line by line, then jabbed a finger at the company's baldest major shareholder and cursed, "Why did you transfer your shares to her?" The bald shareholder scratched his head. "My niece asked me for them, so I gave them." Why so many whys? Yes, most of the people at this table were relatives or connections of mine. In the 7 years since we started, the key posts had long been firmly in my camp. As for Ethan, he'd been hoisted up and left hanging, an empty shell of a leader. While he was choking on his own indignation, I spoke again. "Mr. Ethan, Jack is my childhood sweetheart. When I was 5, I accidentally made him fall out of a tree, and he still has a scar on his leg. Thinking about it keeps me up at night. So, I plan to have Jack officially join Chen's finance department as a way to make it up to him." Ethan shouted, "Finance? You're handing such an important position to an outsider." "He's not an outsider. I've known Jack since I was 3. If anyone here is the outsider, it's you. I met you the latest." Delighted, Jack scooted over and plopped down, shouldering Ethan out of the way. Jack sat down in Ethan's seat, clasped my hand and said with deep feeling, "Maya, don't worry. I won't let you down. Before coming, I reviewed the workload between you and Mr. Ethan. In a bit, I'll revise the company's pay structure. Your salary will be 10 million a month. As for Mr. Ethan," he glanced at Ethan's darkening face, "let's set his at $1 a month for now. If he performs well, we can raise it by percentage later. Even a percentage raise on a $1 salary won't ever crack $10. Ethan's hand shook. He pointed at my calm face, stammering, "Maya, when did you become so vicious?" In his mind, the one driven into this sorry state should have been me. He allowed himself to be cruel to me, allowed 7 years of my effort to be thrown away, allowed me to be chased out like a stray dog. Yet the one thing he would not allow was my fighting back. What Ethan wanted was for me to weep in secret, powerless to resist, to withdraw under his casual kneading and give up my place, and to keep loving him for a lifetime, regretting with every man I met afterward that none could measure up to him. Seeing there was no saving the situation, Ethan slammed the table, grabbed Anna's hand, and before leaving, threw a vicious line over his shoulder. "Maya, just you wait." He hadn't gone far when Jack edged over, putting on a pitiful look. "Maya, did I make Mr. Ethan jealous? You only asked me into the company because life's been hard for me. Maybe I should go talk to him if it calms him down. I don't mind taking a little unfairness." His mouth was sweet enough to rot teeth. I stroked his hand, satisfied. "He's just a washed-up man. Why should you swallow any grievance for his sake? You've been my childhood sweetheart for more than 20 years. If there were going to be anything between us, it would have happened long ago. Would he ever have had his turn to climb up?" Not far away, Ethan's step hitched. He nearly stumbled. Even from that distance, I could feel the blaze of his fury. I thought Ethan might quiet down for a while. I didn't expect that a week later I'd receive a court summons along with a text message. "Maya, don't think Chang'an will end up in your pocket. I took each step to get here. You think I have no means?" Ethan had taken me to court for embezzlement. In the solemn hush of the courtroom, he stood at the plaintiff's bench, smug, while the high-priced lawyer beside him methodically listed my alleged crimes. The defendant abused her position by installing relatives in key posts and maliciously cutting the plaintiff's salary. Therefore, we request Miss Maya's removal from Chang'an and seek 10 million in damages. Stack after stack of documents was submitted. Even the mansion I bought was included with a claim that I'd used company funds, demanding a full audit of the accounts. Ethan wrapped an arm around Anna and grinned until his eyes vanished. "Maya, if you'd just been a good homemaker, then even if I married Anna in the end for the years you stuck with me, I would have been magnanimous and given you a sum of money. But you wouldn't behave and you pushed it to this point. So don't blame me for being ruthless. Once you and your swarm of relatives are kicked out of Chang'an and saddled with tens of millions in debt, it'll be too late to come begging me. Leaning against him, Anna felt her rich wife status within reach, and her tone turned brazen. Sister Maya, no wonder Mr. Ethan looks down on you. The most important thing for a woman is to be a good helpmate to her man. A woman who's obsessed with money like you, how could Mr. Ethan ever fancy that? If I'm forceful, they rack their brains to strip everything from my hands. If I'm meek, they lightly take everything from my hands. In essence, there's no difference between the two. I'll choose to be forceful and gamble on my own life. Sitting at the defendant's table, my attorney leaned close and whispered, Miss Maya, if they conduct a full investigation into the hiring process, it won't be good for us. Trying to place so many people in key positions was bound to leave plenty of gaps. Ethan's move wasn't just about yanking out the nails I'd hammered in. He also wanted me thrown out of the company and saddled with a massive payout. My attorney requested a recess. Ethan, hand in hand with Anna, swaggered up to me. Maya, didn't I tell you long ago? You're no match for me. You could have taken a payout and bowed out quietly. Now when this is over, the debt on your back won't be paid off in 3 lifetimes. He wore the look of a man certain of victory, even pulling Anna into a deep, tender kiss and making vows to his white moonlight. Anna, once the case ends, I'll hold the grandest wedding in River City. I'll make you the most envied bride in the whole city. Anna nodded excitedly, already picturing herself in a sky-high wedding gown, gliding down the aisle under everyone's envious gaze into a life of wealth. Their public display of affection was nauseating. In the mediation room, I reached up to touch Jack's forehead. You said you weren't feeling well just now. Any better? Jack gave a faint smile. Much better. With you beside me, any illness goes away. Ethan's face fell. Maya, get real. You're about to be buried under tens of millions in debt, and you're still showing off affection here. You think a temporary recess lets you dodge what you owe? I ignored him and checked Jack's temperature. Warm but not hot. No fever. Only then did I look at Ethan. What? You thought I requested a recess to avoid the court scrutiny? A playful smile tugged at my lips. I asked for a recess because Jack said he felt a little unwell. That's all. I glanced at my childhood sweetheart, my expression soft. Nothing matters more to me than Jack. Under Ethan's fiery glare, I leaned into Jack's arms. Not far away, Ethan even forgot to keep up his lovey-dovey act with Anna and jumped to his feet, shouting, Maya, let's see how long you can keep swaggering. I'll keep swaggering, I said. Just like you used to. The thick packet we'd prepared was handed to the judge, and a flicker crossed Ethan's face. My attorney adjusted his black-rimmed glasses and spoke evenly. The plaintiff's claim that the defendant abused her position to recruit relatives is false. We have complete surveillance footage from the hiring sites to prove Chen's recruiting and vetting processes are lawful and compliant. The villa in Miss Maya's name was purchased with dividend income from her own company shares, supplemented by loans from several relatives to make up the full price. As for the alleged malicious pay cut, he produced a long stretch of surveillance logs and a work hours analysis. Mr. Ethan's daily working time at Chiangin is under 1 hour. There is severe dereliction of duty. A pay cut was unavoidable. His work, in fact, is worth exactly $1. Jack at my side couldn't help it and snorted a laugh, then tilted his chin at me to fish for credit. Maya, see how fair my salary plan is? I calculated it strictly by workload. Absolutely no favoritism. I squeezed his hand and looked at him with approval. My childhood sweetheart is the best. To keep Ethan from biting back, every placement of my people in the company had been done by the book. Nothing in the footage showed any leaks. Even if Ethan suspected I'd privately shared interview questions, he had no proof. Standing at the defense table, I practically leaned against Jack, trading soft, teasing glances with him. Ethan couldn't stand our affection any longer. He jabbed a finger at me and shouted, Maya, you're an indecent woman. I'm going to sue you for cheating. I blinked. Ethan, setting aside that you and your underassman have long been together, let me remind you of one thing. We never got married. His face changed on the spot. His lips twitched. He wanted to speak but couldn't get a word out. No marriage, no adultery. In the earliest years of our startup, I had proposed marriage to Ethan. Back then he told me, I haven't made any money yet. Give me a little more time. Once I make it big, I'll throw the grandest wedding in River City and marry you through the front door with all the pomp you deserve. I'll never let you be wronged. The startup soon hit its stride, and both Ethan and I received dividend after dividend. When I brought up marriage again, Ethan, his pockets already bulging, changed his tune. Impatient, he said, Maya, the company's slammed right now. The moment I open my eyes, there's a pile of mess waiting on my desk. Stop nagging me about marriage, okay? We've been together so many years. What's the difference from being married? Do you really have to shout about a worthless piece of paper? He had only just started making money. Yet Ethan's attitude flipped completely. That was when I knew I might never see that marriage certificate. Ethan's attorney took the packet our side had submitted, and after 3 or 4 pages, the sure-wing gleam in his eyes went out. Every single hire followed procedure. Not a crack to be found. My dividends had all been reinvested. Thanks to my eye for opportunities, I'd earned 10 times more than Ethan. The lawyer sighed and whispered a few words to him, and Ethan's face turned whiter and whiter until he finally withdrew the suit. But while his case ended, mine was only beginning. My attorney dug through the half-sack of files we'd brought, wiped the sweat from his brow, and produced a thick dossier. Our client, Miss Maya, accuses Mr. Ethan of misappropriating company funds to purchase real estate and luxury goods for Miss Anna beside him. We petitioned the court to freeze and audit all assets under his name. The evidence submitted included not only multiple transfers with no clear destination, but also proof of a 3-year affair between Ethan and Anna. The courtroom fell briefly silent. Ethan stared at the photos, then jerked his head up to look at me in disbelief. Maya, you knew I was with Anna all along? I nodded. The last time I proposed marriage, and he brushed me off impatiently. He didn't come home that night. I checked the car's parking logs and traced him to a bar. In a smoke-hazed private room, Ethan sat sprawled in the center, one arm around a blushing Anna. A circle of buddies egged him on. Never seen this little lady before. Aren't you going to introduce us, Mr. Ethan? You're guarding her like treasure. Looks like she's more important than Miss Maya. Don't tell us this is our new sister-in-law. They were all watching his face and saying whatever would please him. Anna, a little nervous, twisted her fingers. I never meant to compare myself with Miss Maya. Please don't misunderstand. Ethan suddenly pulled her closer. Anna, after all these years, don't you know what's in my heart? I've been making money so I could one day stand openly by your side and give you a good life. If I really liked Maya, I'd have married her long ago. Why would I have waited till now? I stood outside the room, my nails digging into my palms while the men inside hooped for a kiss. Their flattery drifted out to me in snatches. Now that Mr. Ethan's rich, he's a better match with Miss Anna. A capable man doesn't need a domineering woman behind him. A gentle homemaker is best. Anyone can see Miss Maya isn't the type to settle down. In the very beginning, when Ethan and I started the company, everyone envied him for having such a capable girlfriend. The company was still far from going public. We'd only made a bit of money, and I had already been recast as a woman unfit for a peaceful home life. From that moment I never mentioned marriage again, and Ethan avoided the topic like the plague. Between us, some unspoken understanding took shape. We felt less like lovers and more like business partners. At the same time, I'd quietly gathered plenty of evidence of Ethan and Anna being together. Just a few days ago, he used work as an excuse and stayed out all night. It was Anna's birthday. Ethan and his buddies threw her a party at the highest rooftop restaurant in River City. Everyone was there except me. They even set their posts so I couldn't see them. Drunk and loose-tongued, Ethan slurred. When you're poor, you can't be picky about a wife. Being with Maya was just making do. Anna's the one who can walk with me for life. In the noisy, cheerful crowd, Anna put her hands together like a little princess and made a wish. I hope I can stay by Ethan's side forever and be his little princess. The next second, Ethan pulled a diamond ring from his pocket, dropped to one knee, and amid Anna's startled gasp said with deep feeling, "Anna, marry me." Tears welled hot in her eyes as she threw herself into Ethan's arms. I stood outside the restaurant 1,000 times like a stray dog peeking at other people's happiness from the dark. But I knew this would be the last time. I'd bowed my head long enough. It was time to step out of the shadows and seize what was mine. Ethan was caught completely off guard. Line after line of unexplained transfers crushed him. Even his lawyer fell silent, sighed, and admitted there was nothing he could do. Ethan thought the company was his to spend at will, that I had no standing to interfere, and that the money had nothing to do with me. But the company had never been his private purse. While he was out dating Anna, I'd been quietly tightening my grip on the books. All assets under Ethan's name were frozen. When we walked out of court, his arms and legs were weak. He grabbed my forearm and tried to switch to romance. Maya, we've been together so many years. You can't be this heartless. Look, if you drop the suit, I can consider marrying you. How annoying. When I talked feelings, he talked money. When it was money, he switched to feelings. Was he still anyone's dream catch? Was I supposed to chase him for a wedding? I leaned into Jack's arms and looked at Ethan with open provocation. Ethan, you're a washed-up man, pushing old and about to go bankrupt. Why would I marry you? I have money now. Even if I marry, I'll choose the one I actually like, won't I? Jack's the one I've loved in secret for years. If I marry anyone, it'll be him. Ethan's knees buckled. He almost fell. He reached out to grab me, but I slipped aside and he caught nothing. I laughed carefree. Mr. Ethan, you better figure out how to plug that hole. Remember, all the money you misappropriated was spent on Anna. She may not be willing to cough it up. The court moved fast. Soon, every misused company fund under Ethan's name surfaced. The largest chunk was a villa he'd bought to win Anna's smile. When I strolled up to the villa, the two of them were in a shouting match. Anna was hysterical. Why should we sell this villa? You bought it in my name. That makes it mine. In just a few days, Ethan had grown haggard, and he'd lost the patience he used to have for his white moonlight. If we can't scrape together the embezzled money, I'm going to prison. With me pressing him step by step, Ethan floundered. His tone softened a little as he started painting big promises. Anna, don't you believe in my ability? I just slipped up and fell into Maya's trap for a moment. Once I make up the shortfall, I'll bounce right back. And when I start earning again, everything I make will be yours. Anna wavered. She quietly weighed Chen's current scale against Ethan's capabilities, fought an inner battle, and then nodded decisively. Ethan turned his head and spotted me watching the show. He gave a cold snort. Maya, don't think you've beaten me. I only let you slip in because I got careless. If I could rise once, I can rise again. I laced my fingers with Jack's and smiled. Oh, you've already been expelled from the company by a joint vote of the shareholders. What comeback are you talking about? Ethan glowered, still putting on a winning face. I don't believe every shareholder is one of your relatives. I couldn't control all of Chang'an. True, there were still at least 15% of the shares in other hands. When Ethan showed up at the company again, he was no longer the CEO. Just someone pushed outside the circle of power, and he'd sold off all his remaining equity to plug the hole. Still, he reached out to Mr. Wei, who held 10%, to talk terms. On the phone, Mr. Wei agreed breezily, but after Ethan waited in the conference room for a long time, the door opened and in walked a stylish young woman in stiletto heels and bold lipstick. Who are you? Where's Mr. Wei? Ethan blurted. The woman rolled her eyes. It's W's 30th birthday. We were about to head out on a trip when your call yanked us back. Whatever you've got to say, say it. I have plenty to do. Ethan choked on his words, then forced himself to continue. I want Mr. Y to arrange a position for me at the company. No. Once I regain control, I'll give Mr. Y a bigger dividend. No. I can sign a contract right now. I won't go back on my word. No. Why is it no to everything? Because my cousin told me that whatever you propose, I just have to say no. And who's your cousin, Maya? Security dragged a despairing Ethan out. His fingerprint access had been deleted. He no longer had the right to enter Chang'an at all. As he passed through the lobby, he saw me. Maybe he finally realized the company had nothing to do with him anymore. Shock and fury worked on his face. He couldn't help shouting, Maya, you can't do this to me. We've been together 7 years. I swiped at non-existent tears and took Jack's hand. Ethan, when a woman has money, she naturally chooses the one she loves. Otherwise, what did I fight so hard for? Stop clinging. Keep this up and you're only embarrassing yourself. Tell you what, out of respect for our years together, I'll give you some money so you won't have to worry about food and drink. I pulled out my phone and wincing theatrically transferred him a sum. As security finally tossed him out, a robotic female voice chirped from his phone. A lipe 1 yuan received. Ethan's bankruptcy came on fast. He'd long been used to spending big, and he still had no restraint. After covering the company's books, the few million left in his hands were quickly blown through. He wanted to start another venture. After all, he had a prior success to copy, and he boasted to Anna, "Don't worry. Give me 3 years and I guarantee I'll build another success. You'll live without a care." Anna too was full of confidence. "Don't worry, Ethan. I promise I'll suffer alongside you." In her plan, she would endure a few years of hardship with him. And once he succeeded again, she would rightfully become Mrs. Ethan, her position unshakable. But all those rosy plans rested on the premise that his new venture would succeed. What if it failed? No one dared think that far. Ethan dove headfirst into the market and tried to start over from scratch. This time though, there was no one charging ahead to open doors for him. He had to grit his teeth and do things he'd never been good at. At our weekly meeting, Mr. Wei joked to me with a hint of complaint. "Miss Maya, that former Mr. Ethan is nowhere near your level. Back when you brought us in as shareholders, the dividends were generous, and you signed a whole stack of contracts." When it was Ethan's turn, he snorted, sarcasm in his eyes. He came to see me yesterday without a cent on him, full of swagger, bragged for half an hour without producing a single plan, and then asked me to invest 50 million. Pure fantasy. I lowered my eyes, sipped my coffee, and let a smile surface. When I first decided to partner with Ethan, I chose the hardest grind. Raising money and running business development. I knew begging favors was the toughest part, but that work let me plant my feet firmly in the company. I was terrified that the company I'd built with my own hands would end up as a wedding dress for someone else. Now that I'm gone, I honestly don't know if Anna can fill the role I once did. I didn't see Ethan again until 3 months later in front of a high-end club. He was tugging and pulling at Anna. In just a few months he looked 10 years older. Exhaustion etched between his brows, gray streaking his temples. He was clutching the front of Anna's blouse and roaring, "I scraped together 500,000 with great effort, and you blew it in a single day. That money was for investment, not to top up your beauty card balance." Anna shot back without backing down. "When you proposed, you said you'd spoil me like a little princess for life. So where's the princess treatment now? What princess eats gruel and lives in a basement? Ethan, meeting you was the worst luck of 8 lifetimes." I suddenly heard, as if from that bar night again, his drunken talk with his buddies drifting through my mind. A successful man doesn't need a domineering woman, just a gentle helpmate. Funny how no one asked what that gentle helpmate is supposed to do if the successful man goes bankrupt. And there he was in broad daylight, tussling with his basement-dwelling helpmate. Quite a scene. He glanced back, caught sight of me, and a spark of surprise lit his eyes. He hurried over. "Maya, what are you doing here? Did you come to see me? I know your greatest dream all these years has been to marry me. I was wrong. After everything that's happened, I realize the one I love most is you. So Maya, let's start over, okay?" When he was riding high, he wanted a gentle helpmate. Now that he'd fallen, he wanted a strong woman to haul him up. His love shifted with his circumstances. The only constant was that he always loved himself most. The door of the luxury car behind me swung open, and Jack stepped out. Ethan's face changed. I took Jack's hand and smiled, easy and content. "Look at you. How could you possibly compare to my childhood sweetheart? Women don't like overbearing men. A gentle helpmate really is better." Ethan's throat worked. He couldn't get a word out. Clearly, he remembered those were his own words. A boomerang from 3 years ago had come back to strike him right between the eyes. I looked up at the club's flashy sign. It was a beauty spa with steep prices. Even if Anna dumped the full 500,000 onto a card, she still wouldn't qualify as a VIP. I stepped around Ethan and headed inside. He suddenly blocked my path, eyes tinged with pleading. "Maya," he said softly, "if there hadn't been Anna, would we have ended up like this? Wouldn't we have gotten married?" I lowered my head a fraction, weighing it. Would we have married? Memories of my years with Ethan flickered past like lantern shows on the moment. He went down on one knee to propose to Anna. Brothers cheering, streamers flying, glitter raining down. A handsome man and a pretty woman. The diamond ring sparkling so hard it nearly stabbed my eyes blind. I met Ethan's expectant gaze and shook my head. No, I wanted to replace you a long time ago. I was just too broke to do it and had to put up with your lousy temper. You had no morals and I'm not about to bind myself with morals either. A storm of expressions crossed his face. Pain, hurt, humiliation, resentment. He shouted at me, voice turning sharp and ragged. We went through so much hardship together. Did you never love me at all? I dug a finger in my ear, impatient. When a man gets rich and trades up, nobody bothers with moral lectures. Why is it that when a woman makes the same choice, it has to turn into a morality trial? I only walked the path you wanted to take. Why is it a path you can walk, but I, Maya, cannot? I stepped past him into the club. Behind me, Ethan kept yelling, Maya, you'll regret this. You might own a fortune, but you'll spend the rest of your life thinking of me, lonely to the end. You'll regret missing a man who truly loved you today. He really did love to pin a gold label on himself. Anna had already slapped him across the face, and he was still trying to play the devoted lover out here. If I have money, what can I enjoy? Why would I pine after a man with nothing? Chang'an settled back into its old calm. No one mentioned Ethan anymore. It was as if he'd never existed. Winter passed and spring returned. A new year came. On a free afternoon, I drove to the spa for a treatment and through the window spotted Ethan on the street handing out flyers. The spring air was a fickle mix of chill and warmth. He wore only a thin jacket and shivered, numbly pressing a thick stack of leaflets into the hands of passers-by. From the shareholders' idle chatter, I'd heard all his attempts at new ventures had failed. His temperament seemed suited only to lurking in the back office. As for charging forward to win clients and raise money, he was utterly clueless. If you can't open new streams, there's no back office for you to guard. As for Anna, she'd long since kicked him to the curb for a richer patron and took the last tens of thousands he had left when she went. My car rolled slowly past, and he recognized the license plate at a glance. He froze for a beat, then ran after the car, shouting, Maya! Maya! The sound came muffled through the closed window, indistinct. I pressed the accelerator and pulled out of the busy district. Leaving Ethan behind the same way, I deleted the endless long messages he sent from a dozen new numbers. Completely, thoroughly out of my life. The spa was bright and warm. I took out my phone, blocked yet another of Ethan's new numbers and the reconciliation essay it had sent, then had the esthetician light the incense. In the hush, I savored the comfort after the massage. Jack eased the door open and slipped in. The esthetician smiled. Miss Maya, you really do bring Mr. Jack along every time you come here. I couldn't help but smile, tilting my head toward Jack. You come with me here every time. Doesn't it bore you? He shook his head quickly. How could I be bored? I'm thrilled. He glanced at my face and seeing my mood was decent, chose his words carefully. Maya, I have been a bit bottled up lately. How about you let me handle the company for you? My expression didn't change. Jack kept explaining. I just hate seeing you, a girl, work this hard every day. I want to share the load. Girls, you know, looking pretty every day is what really matters. I fixed my eyes on him. All this time I told the world I could never get over Jack, that he was both my childhood sweetheart and my white moonlight. Say something often enough and even Jack started to believe it. But the reason I sought him out back then was because Ethan slipped an N to the company name. He swore it meant peace and safety, but I knew he was pining for his school days white moonlight. So I added Jack's Chung to the name to counter it. At the time I'd even forgotten what Jack looked like. He was just a shield meant to stand against Ethan's white moonlight. Now that shield was starting to grow thoughts it shouldn't. I've known since I was little. Whether lover or family, the moment someone for my own good asks to take power out of my hands, they're here to hurt me. Someone who truly loves me would never try to pry away the power I live on. Love is a lift, not a clipping of wings. My mind raced, running the numbers on every cent I'd spent on Jack lately. The house, the designer clothes, the luxury car. Every transfer has a paper trail. I can sue and claw it all back. Not a penny less. Lawsuits need lawyers. My lashes quivered. Jack, call attorney Warren. Have him come over now. Jack's face lit with delighted surprise. A lawyer? Maya, you're not planning to grant me shares, are you? I'll call him right away and get him here. Attorney Warren arrived faster than the espresso cooled. Jack was still glowing, rehearsing some grateful speech in his head when Warren set his briefcase down and flipped open a folder. I slid the stack of transfer records across the table. The deed for the condo, the wire slips for the car, the boutique receipts, the watch he'd insisted was an investment. Warren skimmed, then looked at me. All in your name, paid from your personal accounts. I nodded. Then we'll petition for return on unjust enrichment and resolve the rest with a clean termination agreement. Jack finally realized what room he was in. Maya, you're suing me? He asked, color draining. I thought shares. I kept my voice even. You asked to take the company out of my hands for my own good. That's when I knew what this was. Love lifts. It doesn't clip wings. He reached for my wrist. I pulled back. Warren slid a document toward him. You can save us all time by signing here and arranging immediate return of assets. Payment schedule attached. Jack stared at the numbers, at me, then at the door. In the end he signed. I watched the pen scratch my name where his had sat for months. The next weeks moved like a clock finally wound right. The court finalized Ethan's penalties. Restitution, a suspended sentence with community service, and a prohibition on serving as an executive officer. He didn't look at me when the order came down. Anna didn't show. Word was she'd left town with a man who actually had a VIP card and a longer line of credit. Her diamond stayed on the listing sites for months. Price slashed again and again. At Chang'an, I audited everything and promoted from the bench. The quiet ones who had kept the lights on when the house was shaking. HR stopped being a stage and turned into a spine. Mr. Wei brought me a term sheet as solid as the first one I ever negotiated with him. Back to the dividends I can brag about, he said with a grin. We expanded carefully, one city at a time, with contracts that read like steel and cash flow that slept at night. On a rainy Thursday, Ethan waited by the curb outside our building. Thinner than I remembered. The kind of thin that comes from pride burning more calories than bread can fix. Maya, he said. I'm sorry. I believed him. I also believed in fences. I know, I said. Do better with the next person you love. Start with yourself. He nodded like the words hurt but fit. Jack tried once more, this time with flowers and a speech about growing up. I accepted the bouquet, handed it to the receptionist, and returned his payment receipt with a stamped settled in full. We took a picture of us shaking hands and ending pretending to be neutral. And that was that. Spring slid into summer. I signed a lease on a small corner office no one else wanted and turned it into a mentorship room. 3 desks, 2 whiteboards, and a rule tacked on the wall in black marker. Keep your own wings. On Fridays, I sat with the women who ran our hardest divisions and asked them what they needed to fly higher. Sometimes the answer was a budget. Sometimes it was a title. Sometimes it was hearing out loud. You built this. Take the credit. One evening I drove past the old villa, the one I'd bought, the one that had taught me exactly where my lines were. The garden lights flicked on by timer, and for a moment, the house looked like it had the night I moved in. Grand, a little empty, full of rooms I hadn't named yet. I parked, walked in, and opened every window. Air and quiet rushed through the hallways like a change of mind. People keep asking if I'll ever marry. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not against rings. I'm against cages dressed up as rings. If someone comes along who understands that power shared is not power lost, that love is a lift and not a ledger, I'll know. If not, I already do the thing I once begged for. I choose the person who chooses me. On the first anniversary of our IPO, the board brought out a cake and someone joked about wishes. I closed my eyes and saw not diamonds or streamers, but a door held open by me for me onto a room I hadn't entered yet. I wished for the same thing I give to everyone who walks into that little corner office. Sky and the wings to meet it. When I opened my eyes, the team was singing. The candles hissed out, and for once there was nothing I needed to take.